Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a horror movie podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris?
Isaiah?
That's right. And we are not recording this at 12:14 a.m. Oh wait, we are.
Yeah, we are. So if we seem a little bit
Off. It's
funnier
because...
than normal.
Crap, is this going to be the new normal? This episode's going to be so good, we're going to have to do this every time.
I mean,
There's a
I was
chance.
about to say who could say whose fault it is that we're recording at this hour, but if this turns out to be really good, then I will gladly take credit for it.
We can absolutely blame the cop that pulled you over.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We don't have time to get into that because we have 7 pages of notes.
That's right, baby. Woo! Longest episode ever.
Quite possibly.
Again.
Yeah.
It's the new thing we do every episode where we make it longer somehow. We don't know how.
Setting records.
The movies just keep getting more detailed. And I hate
And
it.
do they? I mean,
Well, there just keeps being more things that happen in every scene.
Yeah. This isn't
It's
that the
just
movies are like this is not
sensory
eternal
overload.
quality, the amount of notes I'm taking.
No.
Because it's not. Trust me, we'll get to that as we go through this. But it's not about
Much
quality.
like a bad case of diarrhea. It's not good. It's just a lot of it and all at once.
Yes.
yes.
So let's open
An apt
with
analogy.
something that this series has, some people would say lacking of. I've been okay with it not being there. But we open with some harmonica playing. That's right, some steamy harmonica playing during the opening credits.
Yeah.
It's
Sadly, it's in the dark and
it's just a bunch
all
of
like
real close-up shots of bodies. Like,
Yeah.
nothing
You don't see
I
attractive.
think,
anything, really.
is that a shoulder blade?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
a rib?
Is that a navel?
Oh my gosh, is that a
Wow.
belly button? How scandalous.
I hope so.
Fun fact, because this is one of the few fun facts I have about this movie, because there really wasn't a lot today I could find. The person in this scene is not as we find out that the scene is supposed to be Alice and Dan Jordan from the last movie. But the actual scene, it's the actor who plays Super Freddy from later is playing Dan Jordan in this sex scene. I mean harmonica scene. Sorry, it's really late.
Can't believe you've broken the illusion, Austin.
No, guys, we gotta start over.
Right, cut.
Start the whole episode.
Yeah.
Start it over. We can't let them know.
No.
But yeah, and also the credits are in like this weird chalk font
Because
it's child.
The Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Child.
Oh yeah, I guess we should say that. We review horror movies, and today's episode is we might really have to start over.
Oh, too late now, baby.
That was good.
Okay,
This is
episode,
the 12 a.m. recording.
Yeah, we were talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
There we are.
We don't just open up on this credit scene that has nothing. There's a specific movie. This isn't just my life that opens up with this credit scene. So then post harmonica scene, we get a little close up shot of Alice and Dan Jordan's faces, all sexy like, and then Alice gets up and she goes for a nice post harmonica shower, as you do. You got to get that dirty Dan Jordan off you. And as she's showering, some dirty water starts spurting up from the drain under her. It's really gross.
Yeah, some poo water
I guess.
comes up from
She
the
thinks-
drain, and instinctively she goes, "Yeah, I should put my hand in there."
Well, she's trying to fix
Dicks
the
it out,
clog.
yeah.
It's a clog, obviously, that makes weird brown water come out.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. It happens. Don't overthink anything in this movie, because
Especially since we learned that this is not reality.
true, this is a dream. So maybe Freddy is making her reach her hand into
into the poo water.
Absurd
Yeah.
dream thing.
Yeah.
No, it's her subconscious. She wants to do the poo water. Touch the poo water. Reach out and touch poo water.
And while she does that, the shower all starts going into like full crazy mode. Like the shower pressure's getting really crazy. The walls starting to burst water out. The faucets themselves, like all the faucets, like not the faucets, but like the handles of the faucet. What are those called?
Shower head. The shower head.
Not what I'm thinking of. The things that you use to control the faucet.
The shower knobs.
Sure, that doesn't sound right either, but we'll go with that.
They are technically knobs.
Sure, but those burst off and water comes out of them, and the whole little shower she's in, because it's a standing shower. We didn't mention that because why would we have thought to mention that? But it is, and it starts filling up, and she's starting to drown almost. And she starts banging on the shower door, and it pops open, and now she's in a dingy hallway.
Whoa.
Woo!
Dingy hallway.
Gross hallways. But the problem is now she's in this dirty hallway. She's going to have to take another shower. Because now she's dirty. Poor dream Alice. Now she's a nun. She literally walks through a room and now becomes a nun. And the second this happened, my brain went, oh no.
Yep.
No.
We know what happens with nuns.
From Nightmare 3.
No, don't do it.
Bringing it back.
So yeah, she walks through and look at that. She's in a room with a bunch of raving maniacs.
How many?
A bunch.
100,
well,
about
the count gets to about 70 before two guys counting give up and leave this poor woman who what's that? That's right, her, even though it's Alice, her name tag says Amanda Kruger, and also Robert Englund's in this scene, which is kind of cool, which I guess implies that human Robert Englund looking guy is Freddy's actual father, because like we talked about in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, 100 men doing horrible things to a woman does not produce a mixed child of all of those people. That's not how science works. So I guess Robert Englund Maniac is Freddy's actual dad, or isn't, because who cares? This movie doesn't deserve credit.
But he's one of the madmen?
He's one of the madmen, yeah. He spikes the camera a couple times. Like, he is like straight up like looking right at the camera, like making sure you're supposed to notice that, hey, look, he's here. See, look, it's Robert Englund. It's not like the bus scene in 2 where like it was kind of tasteful. It's just a quick shot where you don't know he's there. This one, they go like, see him? Look, he's here. And it's like, all right, cool. Robert Englund's in the scene. Robert Englund is the best part about these movies, even when the movies get worse and worse. He is still a national treasure.
With Nick Cage?
Yes, he is. He is
Nick Cage
he is on the back of the Declaration of Independence.
The whole time. Just Robert Englund's face.
Just Robert Englund. Yeah, and they all start surrounding her, and we cut to black, and she screams. If you watched the 3rd movie, you know what they're implying here. Freddy is the bastard son of 100 maniacs. So, yeah. We're keeping that part of the lore, and we're doubling down on it and showing you a visual representation, because that's what you wanted, right? After you heard about it in the 3rd movie, you went, but what did it look like?
But I need to know.
Let me see the maniacs surround a poor innocent girl.
And you know what? Robert Shea said, I got you.
Yeah. Good old Bob Shea.
I hear your outcries.
He's like, can I be in the scene again? And they're like, no, we're good, Bob. You just go be a leather daddy teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we cut to her waking up. And, oh, look, she's just in bed with Dan Jordan. That's right, Dan Jordan's back too. Woo, Alice and Dan Jordan are back. But wait, that's not Dan Jordan. That's Maniac Robert Englund. And he's trying to attack her. But she pushes him off and actually wakes up. Now we cut to graduation. Because apparently she's graduating. And we also meet a bunch of students. We meet this movie's characters. Because all of her friends are dead, remember? That was the last movie. Yeah.
And Alice made a whole bunch of new friends
in a year.
Her last one's
in this past year, she's made these friends that act like they've been lifelong friends with her.
Yeah. Yes, I noticed that. Like, the whole movie depends on their being very close.
Very close friends.
Y'all are like second string, man. I mean, you're the understudies for the dead.
Yeah, they were on the bench the whole time.
To be fair to this movie, I just had a thought. Maybe this was Dan Jordan's friend group. Because he kind of wasn't really part of her friend group.
And Alice is like being grafted in.
Because all her friends died. They're like, I guess she could come over here. Well, how'd your friends die again? Oh, a weird ghost guy killed him? Nah, we don't believe you. Because they don't know her story at all. These really close friends of her.
You also just described like a third of the character development.
Yeah.
In this movie.
But yeah, so this scene it's there. We meet Greta, Mark, and Yvonne. They all show a little bit of their character traits. We'll get another scene where we just kind of say, here's their characters, and this is the first of those. The dialogue in this scene, like a lot of scenes with these characters, is delivered so stunted and awkwardly. Even Alice, who was good in the last movie, can't act in this movie for some reason. Like, she is definitely the best actress of, like, the whole cast. Well, not, like, she's the best.
Her dad.
Yes, her dad's great.
And Robert Englund.
Yeah, there are some good characters. But of, like, your kid characters, she is one of the best. But she's still not as good as she used to be somehow.
It's like her and Dan Jordan, which is not what you would have expected.
Yeah, because they were both just kind of there in the last movie.
Kind of coasting along.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get Dan Jordan. He's given the, post-graduation little speech, because I guess he's the valedictorian with his weird, silly glasses. I mean, I guess there might be other people who give speeches, but that's the only person I remember at graduations I went to was, like, the valedictorian speech and stuff. So I don't know why Dan Jordan would be giving a speech at graduation, but he is.
Because he's the big football man.
He's the whole package.
Do they give big football guys the graduation speech?
Valedictorian?
I feel like they don't. Once again, I didn't have a graduation. I was homeschooled, but I went to a lot of my friends' graduations, and I never saw anyone but, like, the really nerdy kids who actually got to give speeches. That's how that worked. But, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some schools do this, and he's there. When we learn a bunch about the other characters, we get, like, this is some of those moments where we get the, oh, Greta can't eat food because she's trying to be a model. And, like, we get that level of character development because that's all this movie gives you. Just like the last movie. It's
very, very abrupt, quick strokes.
Yeah, and, like, you meet a couple of their parents for the one time you might see them in a movie, except for Greta's mom, who has, like, one other scene. Like, all the characters get parents, even though most of them don't matter later. Just, they're here for this scene. But at first, Alice doesn't think her dad's there, because, her dad's a loser
alcoholic.
Drunk. What a surprise, didn't show up. But, he
steals the show.
But he did, and I want to just double down on what I said last movie. At the last movie, it felt like he was starting to show some change, but apparently his character went all the way and, like, is a great dad now.
You're totally right, yeah.
A great... Well, here's the thing. The first movie, I was probably giving him too much credit. This movie, they went, oh, we see that tiny seeds we did? Let's just double down on it. And, that's honestly...
Nourished them.
It's really nice to see, because so many other times...
it's probably one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah. There are so many other times where, like, characters immediately, like, revert back in the next movie, or they just, like, this is a very obscure reference that most people won't get, but when me and Chris watched the Halloween Town movies last year, the mother from the Halloween Town hates magic for all the first movie, but then at the end realizes, her being a witch is really important to her and her family. But in the next movie, she's back to magic is bad, I hate it. And it's like, what happened to your character growth in the last movie? This movie didn't do that. It actually, like, said, hey, he's been going to AA. And you're like, oh, crap. We're, like, actually giving this very realistically non-important side character in this movie a lot of, like, character development. More than, like, Alice or Dan Jordan actually get. But
yeah, I was going to say, like, a better example, I think, of what you're trying to describe is probably right under your nose, and I guess we'll get to it, but as soon as you laid out that description of, like, a character that reverts, I thought immediately of Alice, who's, like, we already discussed this a little bit in the last movie because they introduced this trait of constant daydreaming, and that just goes nowhere. And then in this movie, we learn, like, she seems to be seeing Freddy when she's awake. What's going on? What could explain that? Well, the answer is clear. Not at all the daydreaming thing.
No, it's because she's pregnant. That's baby dreams.
To the ground.
Gosh, it's obviously baby dreams. What do you mean? Of course it's baby dreams.
Yeah.
She overcame her daydreaming after the time when her, Freddy pretended to be her dead boyfriend. She was... or dead brother. That was her dead brother. I think.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, no, it was her dead brother.
Let's move on. Let's end this scene. They end with a picture. They end with a big giant group picture with all the parents, and it's like, okay. And then they move on.
And the principal. It looks
but we also learn that Dan Jordan and Alice are going to go on a trip to Paris, right? Yes. And
they were
once again, in every single one of these movies we review that has involved, like, an 80s high school, I'm just slapped with an image of, like, apparently how much cooler they were than high schools today. Because they've got archery ranges, and they're going on cruises, and then they're just up and going on, like, trips to Paris, because an 80s high schooler could afford that kind of, I don't know. And they're like, "Are your parents okay with that?" They're like, "Forget my parents. I'm going to Paris." And yeah,
Yeah.
there's a great freedom that we apparently missed out on having been born in the 90s.
Yeah. And as she leaves, she tells her dad that she's just going to go across the street to work. But she doesn't actually quite get to work because she sees some kids and they're singing the Freddy song again. It's those kids in white. They're back at it again, singing the same old song.
On their white pants.
But not representing God in this movie, I think. Who knows? That last movie was weird. This movie's also weird, but in completely different ways. This movie is so... I gotta acknowledge it real quick. This movie is so weird because in so many ways it feels like such a direct sequel to the last movie, but also ignoring so much that the last movie did.
Go on.
Just the fact that those kids helped her save the day at the end, and now they're just back to being the Omen, which is fair. That's all they really should have ever been.
Like furniture, yeah.
But now they're just here to let her know she's in a dream. They're not here to help her kill Freddy with this super magical thing that should have stopped him according to the way it was portrayed. Here's the thing: I get that he had to come back, I do, but I mean, did he? Because this movie sucked. Maybe they should have stopped at the last movie. But I get in the sense of that last movie made the most money they had ever made in the history of this. So there's no way Bob Shea was going to let this movie not exist. So, but it's so much there's so much of this movie that we're going to get to is just feels like such a picking up right where the last movie left off, but also to do that they had to ignore a lot of the last movie. Alice became this cool awesome person with all these
dream warrior,
with all these
master,
dream master, with all these
dream
qualities
warrior,
of her friends that she picked up through weird osmosis thing that she had. But
now she doesn't have any of them.
Now she's just bumbling girl again. I don't know, it's just one of the many flaws in this movie, and honestly, it's easier to pick this one apart because some of these later flaws are just, oh wow, this movie's crazy, but not in a good way. It is just, this plot is going to get convoluted. So let's get to some of that convoluted stuff. So we have her.
There are a lot of it.
Yeah, she's walking across the street to go to work, but she sees the kids, and now it's night, and she follows them to a Gothic castle, which is apparently where Amanda Kruger was attacked, even though that was supposed to be in the setting of the third movie, which is also kind of a direct sequel of these three movies. They're all supposed to be connected with Kristen in the last movie, but now the building is completely different the two times we see it in this movie. It's like a Gothic castle.
Yeah.
Got turrets and things like that.
Yeah, it's not at all the same building. And it's just
Transylvanian castle.
Yeah, it's literally a matte painting because they didn't have this set. It looks out of place even in the scene, let alone if you look at the continuity of the movies it's been from. But whatever. She walks up there. She walks inside, and she sees Amanda Kruger, and she follows her. She walks the halls a little bit with her, and she sees a stroller. Then she falls down and is now on a stretcher. And all
the stroller was interesting. Because we've started how many movies with a tricycle rolling around? And now it's the stroller.
Well, because it's a baby now. It's called the Dream Child, not the Dream
Child.
Dream Kid on a
toddler.
Oh, I guess that could still be a child. But no, it's a Dream Baby.
It's not the Dream Child. It's not the Dream Toddler. It's the Dream Child.
Yeah, which means baby, apparently. Because this is all about weird baby Freddy, which we're about to get to. Oh my, we're about to get to.
It's really about weird baby inside of Alice.
There's so much weird stuff. We have to get to it. We have to get to it. We got.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm not. No, it's fine.
Ready.
We gotta get. This movie is so bad. I'm so with you on wanting to just complain about every little thing, but I don't think we can.
We'd be here for 3 hours.
Yeah. So she's now on the stretcher. She's being brought in, and all the doctors at first are trying to help her, and then they start all freaking out and shaking randomly, and we get this panning shot of them.
Vibrating.
And then Alice is in this panning shot, and now she's just watching the real Amanda Kruger.
Back. Yeah, and it's Amanda instead of her on the
thing. To be fair, that is literally something that, not this, but the being one character in a dream, then turning into watching that character, has something that has definitely happened to me in a dream. So, it is a very dream-like thing. But when it comes to storytelling for a movie, it is a jarring twist. You're like, wait, what? Okay, she's over here now, and now she's what? Okay, because the first time we see this whole Amanda Kruger stuff, she's representing Amanda Kruger in her nightmares, but then she starts representing her, but then does. I felt like it was just a weird choice. Like, it's definitely a very dream-like thing, but I don't know, I just didn't like it. So after they freak out, Amanda Kruger, she gives birth, and Freddy is... Well, actually, before she's about to give birth, we find out Freddy is breached, and the doctor just tells her, hey, you gotta turn him around, which is not how a breached baby works. Either there's two options. One, you get a C-section, or two, the mother dies in childbirth. Like, that's really the only options. And I guess she turned him around because they didn't seem to have a problem. I mean, I know there are probably chances of you not. I'm sure there have been times where babies were breached where they didn't die in childbirth. But that was like a big thing that ended up killing a lot of moms in childbirth, was breached babies before C-sections were around. And the doctor just goes, you gotta turn him around, and that's it. Like, it's like they just went. It's like they went, oh, what's a word that has to do with birthing? I've heard the word breached before. All right, tell her kid's breached. And then they just went to the neck. They just birthed the kid. It's like, okay. I mean, okay, fine. And Freddy's there. Freddy pops out, and Freddy is ugly. He's a little ugly freak baby. And the nurse, though, says, it's one of God's creatures. But, Amanda...
That's not one of God's creatures.
Yeah, I liked that. That was a good line. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right, Amanda, that's not. I think she says that surely is not one of God's creatures. But you know what? What we see here, this gross-looking baby Freddy that pops up after the nurse drops him. Oh. Like, I don't know which is worse. This or Slug Jason from 9. Like, it's genuinely close. Like...
I forgot about Slug Jason, which is essentially I don't want to call it the same concept.
Baby Jason?
They're both stupid. They're both that moment where the series jumps the shark in a horrible way.
To do with childbirth.
They do both have to do with childbirth, which is...
Conceiving the monster again. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
And both have cool scenes where they are unborn.
Sure.
And we'll get to that more later.
So now the baby crawls out of the room, and Alice, she follows him, and she opens the door, and what's that? Oh, she's in the cathedral from the last one. Like I talked about, this movie feels like such a direct sequel. Like, we're literally in the same room, but also, like, they had to undo the last movie, which I get. Like, that is how movies work. I get if you want to do a sequel, you sometimes have to undo the last movie. But then don't...
It was like they did the sequel, but they also really wanted to make a sequel to 3 more than they did 4. So they're like, what if we just took all the lore from 3 that we really didn't address in 3 and carry it, or didn't address in 4 and carried it over into 5 and then just ignored everything that happened in 4. There's also,
like, I feel like...
Aside from the characters.
I feel like what makes this one work so badly, specifically in this, like, weird lore mixing thing, like, what makes it not work is what I meant to say, but my brain is mush because you're making me record at 12:30. I love you,
Not
Isaiah.
my fault.
I love you, Isaiah.
That 20-minute pulling over experience is to blame for us recording hours and hours later than normal.
Sure. Yeah. Where were we? But yeah, so what I was saying, though, is this movie, I think, like, it does so, why it's so bad is so many of these other sequels, like, specifically, like, I bring back to it because it is one of the few horror franchises I've now watched in full, but Friday the 13th, for the most part, just ignored the next movie ignored the last movie in the next movie because it's easier. This movie went, let's connect it directly, but then that ignores like half of it, and it actually just caused more issues than just saying he's back. Like, we crapped on it like crazy in the last movie, but man, would I have preferred dog piss again. Like, that's so much less insulting to my intelligence than this dream baby crap.
Well, that's not a bad diagnosis. Like, we can get into it more at the end.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just to give it a sentence here, I feel like we wouldn't be talking about it this way at all if the acting and dialogue were good.
Maybe. Yeah, that's fair.
We can discuss that more at the end.
And now they're in the cathedral, and Freddy baby starts scurrying around, making really freaky baby noises.
He goes...
that did not get picked up at all, and that's fine. He makes
He makes horrible noises.
He does. and they're annoying, and they're there, and then he scurries up to his empty clothes as Alice screams, "Not again!" And then the baby starts screaming, and it starts destroying the church, and like building this like altar to him kind of thing that's like getting lifted, and like and during that he's starting to grow back to his normal size.
Yeah, as you do when you crawl inside your sweater.
As you do. And then right after he gets back to his normal size, though, for some reason, just because I guess it looked cool, the stained glass behind him explodes, knocking him over and resetting the room. Just because.
Yeah.
Kind of slapstick.
Yeah.
They set up him like, oh, it's the climactic renewal of Freddy, and then he's like, oh,
yeah, maybe that was the point.
Takes this big pratfall from the altar, you know.
Maybe
They're
really
that was
not
on trying to take themselves seriously in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. So after that, though, he gets his glove and his hat back, and he says, "It's a boy," and you're like, "All right, Freddy, yeah, it's a boy."
And he's back. Yay.
He's back. Freddy then has this. This next scene goes on for like a minute and a half, but I have like 2 or 3 notes on it because it is so weird. Freddy walks over and he touches Alice's belly, saying that that's the key to bringing him back. Basically, there's a lot more words in it. But then his mom opens the door and she reprimands him, saying she won't let him be born again. And then it's over. That's the end of the scene. Like, there's a little bit more dialogue in there, but that's the gist of it. It's stupid. It's pointless. She gives a little bit more of the details that eventually Alice is going to remember or relearn about how to defeat Freddy. But yeah. But then she wakes back up at the Crave Inn, which once again they didn't actually mention it in this movie. That's what it's called. But I want to give the last movie credit again because the Crave Inn is a really funny joke for the name of the diner. And we have her coworker Anne, who is only in this scene, who is really mad that she's late for work. And that's it. That's this whole scene. It's like another like minute scene of just her coworker being like, "You're 4 hours late for work. I'm mad," and that's it. And you're like, okay, was this Anne character gonna be like a no? Oh, Anne's gone.
No,
that's Anne.
Just the one.
That was Anne.
One.
Got it. Cool. Anne's gone. Got it.
Well, you won't hear me defending this movie a lot. I'll just spoil that right now. But it is this movie. I want to say it feels like, at least to me, spends more time in dreams, like especially one character's dreams, than a lot of the previous movies. Like a lot of the movie, and it's unclear where the dreams start and where they end. So when she woke up in the diner, I think, okay, is this like part 2 of the dream? But then the presence of a coworker demonstrate, okay, we're back in reality now, and also that like the transition from reality was smooth, which is
well, we find out why. It's because she's actually not dreaming; it's her baby's dream. Because this movie is stupid. You want to give this? Here's the thing: you could give this movie credit, like, oh, it's really kind of like what the first movie did and did well to a point was the like not knowing when you're in or out of a dream. This movie really doubles down on that, but not really in a good way, in a just disorienting way. And you're
it's so disorienting.
Oh, okay, like there's a scene later we'll get to. It's actually coming up pretty soon where you like, oh, okay, we're out of the dream. Oh no, we're not. Okay, cool, we're not out of the dream at all.
Yeah, it's quite disorienting.
Because the character basically gets a double Freddy kill for no reason.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah, that does happen.
But yeah, so she's out there, and now we're at this weird senior pool party that's at the school's pool. Apparently, it's because Yvonne has a key to the pool because she's like a star diver or something, is like apparently the reason.
She's part of the swim team, I think.
Because she's on like the swim team.
Maybe a captain of the swim team.
Maybe, but I think she's like a diver specifically, which I guess she might also be doing other swim team stuff. But the only things we ever see her do is diving, not like swimming laps. So I assume she's more of on the diving team, which once again I don't think most high schools have a diving team, but this one does.
The 80s, dude.
Back when you went to Paris after your graduation and you did cool dives at the school pool.
And you shot bows and arrows in gym and pantsed people during baseball. And
I mean, that's just
stuff.
Fun.
Yeah.
To the gimp club with your.
Well, that one wasn't supposed to happen.
Teacher?
Whoa, Chris, that wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be there. That was bad.
Right.
Getting pantsed when he was, for some reason, wearing a jock strap so you could see his bare butt for no reason, that that was on purpose. I don't know. The movie was weird too. But this movie is also weird. So let's get back to it. This is a really just expositional scene where we learn about our new cast. We have Yvonne, who she's like
Swims.
Yeah, she swims.
She dive and she swim.
And she's also like has a lot of pressure on herself. It seemed like school pressure.
Very motivated.
Yeah. She's also like volunteers at a hospital, which we'll find out later. I don't remember if and when they ever set that up, but she's just there later. But so yeah,
she kind of shows up in a scene.
Yeah, wearing what looks like a diner's uniform, but is like told to grab files and stuff. So I guess she works there. But we'll get to that. Who else do we meet? We have Greta. We'll double down on her. Her mom wanting her to be a specific person that she doesn't quite want to be, and she's the perfect pretty girl, but because she has to be, kind of her character.
But also, we get a sense that maybe she's a little bit of a weirdo.
Yeah.
Because also she does like a lot of voices in most of the scene she's in.
She does do a lot of like character voices, especially in the graduation scene. She's just like doing bits, and it's like, I mean, I respect it because it's definitely like I've been in those kind of friend groups where
as someone who that is also what I do a lot.
Yeah, me and Chris just do bits sometimes, so I get it and I respect it. But like, it doesn't make sense for that character in this movie.
No.
It would make more sense for Mark's character because he's kind of a weirdo. But no, he just likes comics and hates blood, which comes into play like once later.
Yeah.
I forgot that it even came into play when it happened. I had to watch a review afterwards to be like, oh yeah, that was when they brought it back up. So, because Yvonne cuts her hand on a bottle and that freaks out Mark. Because even though he draws comics with lots of gore, he doesn't like it in real life. And I think this is also the scene where we set up that, because Dan Jordan's in this scene, we set up that he doesn't drink. Because that comes into play in like one line later. And that's the classic, the last couple movies where they go, let's throw, I guess really just the last movie, because 3 was actually really well done with their characters. 4, where they just go, 4 in this movie are just like, let's mention like a character trait once or twice so we can use that as their death.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So yeah, Dan Jordan's about to leave, and he first, though, as he's about to leave, they give him a bottle of champagne for, not for himself, because he doesn't drink, but for Alice, to celebrate graduation and leaving. So as he leaves the pool party to go help... Oh, sorry. The reason he leaves, though, is because he gets a call from Alice, freaking out about her dream. So he goes to leave to go help her, but he starts to nod off in his truck, and his mom is now on the radio, and she does not approve of him and Alice.
No, not at all.
She curses at both of them. Does not like them.
Slut, something.
And a pig.
She's very mean to both of them, but also it's not his real mom. It's Freddie doing the voice of his mom on the radio, and then Freddie's voice on the radio, and he's coming out of the radio. Like, it's cool, like, scene where his like hand comes out and like scratches the radio. Then he's just in the car.
And we get a really cool scene.
I mean,
I say cool in quotes.
Okay. So yeah, once he's in there, he makes Dan Jordan put a bunch of extra seatbelts on himself. And then
grabs the champagne.
Yeah, and he causes the truck. First, he makes the truck swerve and almost crash. Then Freddie, because then at this point, Freddie actually comes out of the thing and is like in the truck next to him and grabs the champagne, drinks it, doesn't like the taste of it, spits it out, and it's acidic now.
Yeah. And then he pours it on his arm and rips his arm off. And then attaches it to the ceiling and buckles himself in with it.
And you didn't like this?
Why?
I don't
oh my gosh.
dislike this one, but it's weird. And it's weird. I feel like those earlier movies...
It's so goofy.
This movie feels so weird to be weird. Freddy is now silly and weird just to be silly and weird. He's not really playing it off the characters at all anymore, which is why I love 3 and have not loved anything Freddy has done with pretty much any character since 3. because it just feels so forced, some of it. Like this one, just like... Here's the thing, though. One thing if this was actually a kill, but it's not. Because Freddy, after buckling himself in, tells him to buckle up, and then shoots him out of the windshield. You expect him to die, but oh no, he's just at the pool now. Because this is a fake out. This is like a complete setup for a Freddy kill with all like a couple one-liners, quippy thing about how he's about to die, and then he doesn't die, and he's in the pool and he leaves again, and oh, his truck is locked. So I guess I'll just take this bike here, which I don't know if it's his bike or it's just another bike. It's a dream, so I guess it doesn't matter. He takes this bike. Where were we? He takes the bike. Oh, we're on the next page already.
And things start to happen.
Also, there was a phone ringing. There was a phone ringing that I thought was going to be important, but it wasn't.
Oh.
It looks like he's about to go to the phone, but then he just leaves the building and gets on the bike. And then, for this scene, I will say, this scene visually looks amazing. Very cool. This transition we're about to have during this kill is actually really cool and really well done. But I definitely do have some things I want to complain about it, so let's break down as it happens. Because Freddy, he puts these wires into his hands, and they kind of grow more, and they do more, like they kind of slowly get further into his face and stuff.
Infest his body.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
He turns into this weird.
But what's not so awesome is Freddy has
Death Mech Rider.
Yeah, and Freddy has his face in the bike, and he gives another quip about Dan having a need for speed, and you're like, okay, there's our quip for this. He's about to kill him with the bike. No.
We get the triple threat.
Oh, baby. We're not even there. First, he stabs him with his claws, saying "Gotcha," because he just had to say "Gotcha." It was
he's got him.
Yeah, and then Freddy, as Freddy kills Dan with the bike, as he continues to push things into him, he goes with a nice triple. They're definitely supposed to be quips. But unlike sometimes we're a need for speed, or there's a quip when he finally kills him at the end of this, there's another quip that fine, that's a quip to kill him. These next three aren't quips. He just says things about bikes. He says fuel injection, power drive, fast lane, and it's like he's just saying words now that somewhat have to do with bikes. Yeah, he's like Akira. And it's like, okay, cool. And then he ends it with, Danny, you better not dream and drive, as Dan Jordan wakes up and he drives into oncoming traffic. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, sorry. He starts driving. He actually doesn't wake up yet. He just starts driving into oncoming traffic. Because then we cut back to Alice at work. Oh, wait.
At the diner?
She sees weird bike Dan Jordan, behind her head, and, also this weird, hell hole thing that's just there, because I guess she's in the dream, which, we find out later because of the dream baby, is part of this story. But it's very abrupt and weird. I think it's her womb, due to one other scene where we actually get, a context of it. I think it's a representation of her womb, or, her fallopian tubes,
or umbilical cord or something.
Maybe.
Dan was in her womb.
But yeah,
you heard it right.
We cut, and then after that we cut back to Dan Jordan, and he's still in his truck as he wakes up and crashes right outside Alice's diner. As Alice goes to check on him, this weird Freddy-esque truck driver, who I guess due to a scene right after we find out is Freddy, because she is still in a dream. So I guess this is Freddy, but he just wants to kind of slightly play with her. Because he's not really even that mean to her or anything. It's just he's pretending to be the truck driver saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I didn't mean to. He came out of nowhere." It's like, okay, it's
and he's got the sweater and everything.
Yeah, but he's got
and a hat.
The sweater and the hat. And then she walks up, and she sees Dan Jordan's mangled body, and Dan Jordan, he's still alive though. And he asks her, in Freddy's voice, if she wants to make babies. And then she wakes up in the hospital, and Yvonne tells her that Dan...
Yeah, Yvonne's there.
Yeah, Yvonne's here.
Her diner outfit.
And, well, we thought it was her diner outfit, but it's actually her volunteering in the hospital outfit. Duh!
It was red and white, so, that's
true.
on us.
The Crave-In outfits are blue sometimes.
Most of the time.
I think
yeah.
so, yeah. Um, and Yvonne's telling her about Dan getting in an accident. Alice is freaking out and telling everyone about what really happened with Freddy. And no one's believing her, of course, because that's the trope we have to do in this movie, which I get. I do understand. There's a psychology thing of like them not understanding. I get it. But at this point, when I'm 5 movies in, I'm tired of characters not understanding. Just, it'd be nice if we just had characters that got it from the start and were like willing to be on board at least. Even if they don't get it, they're like completely on board, like trying to figure it out. But we don't have that. And she finds out that she's pregnant though, and then she goes to sleep.
She's just a little bit pregnant.
That's she's just a little bit pregnant.
As Yvonne says, you got a slight touch of pregnancy.
Yeah. And then it looks like Alice wakes up, but as we find out later, she doesn't, because she's talking to a little boy named Jacob. I wonder what his story is. We'll find out soon. It's not a good one. Now we cut to
the dream child. Yes.
Yeah, we cut to Greta crying in her room because her friend Dan died, and her mom yells for her, so she drops this porcelain doll. And that kind of comes into play later. Once again, this scene is literally just so we can use the porcelain doll for a later scene. She likes porcelain dolls.
She sets the porcelain doll down, and then it falls and breaks.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, like, she doesn't strike me as the porcelain doll kind of... Whatever.
But she is.
Yeah, they toss it in.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of a cool and gruesome looking death.
We have a quick little scene after that with Alice and Yvonne. Or this actually might have been before that. I don't remember for sure. But Alice and Yvonne have this short scene where Alice is asking her about this little boy she met last night. And Yvonne's like, there was no little boy anywhere near your room. Like, there's no one on your floor. Ooh. Ghost boy? No, not a ghost boy. It's worse. Then we go to Alice, who's with all her friends, and she's telling Yvonne, Greta, and Mark the story of Freddy Krueger. This scene goes on for like 4 minutes because she's got to start from the whole beginning and tell them everything. Because what if someone came to the 5th movie in a series and had never watched any of the other ones? They need to know everything. Like, I get this is for potential new audience members, but come on. Like, this might have felt like the most egregiously long one where we went through everything, that like all of his story for like, and we're the 5th movie in. Mm-hmm. I know the story.
Anyone who's probably watching these movies at this point almost certainly knows the story.
Yeah,
because they do it in every movie.
Yeah, if you missed any of the other movies, if you've seen any of the movies, you know the story. But Alice freaks out because her friends, they're just not listening to her, and they're not taking her seriously, and like, Mark's still drawing, and like, Yvonne's not agreeing with her. I think she's mad at Greta too, because I don't remember what Greta was doing in the scene, but she did something that made Alice mad.
Probably eating.
Maybe? I don't know, because Greta doesn't really eat that much. That's kind of her whole character, is not eating. Now we have I wrote this down. We have a little charming scene between Alice and her dad. This is a scene where like her dad like comes home and like talks about like he's just a really good dad. Like talks about like buying her new groceries and stuff like because she's pregnant now and he cares like this scene is really not important to the plot, but I had to mention it because I loved it. It was like so charming and you're like, aw, her dad's like changed. Like it's genuinely such a cool moment after the slight growth we saw in the last movie to see this like super caring dad, and it was like, okay.
Seriously, like when we would see Alice fantasizing about like screaming at her dad and all kinds of obscenities, and
now he's got a really good relationship with him. He's like not even like they could have very easily gone with the story of like him at least being slightly disappointed that his daughter in high school got pregnant before she was, but no, he's just cool with it. He's just happy and wants to be there for her, and it's like it's really nice. I think he does make a joke about like, don't make this a regular thing, which I found funny. It was like, okay, yeah, don't get pregnant regularly, okay. But then we cut to Greta, and she's at this rich dinner party with her mom and some other important people that like could get her modeling work down the line. But it's a big bore because these guys are boring. So she falls asleep. And then as she wakes up, though, wink, wink, she's not awake. She wakes up into the dream world. Her mom berates her for not eating. And then, like, because there's, like, this whole, like, discussion about how, like, oh, you want me to just eat and go puke it up? Like, it's a really, like, I don't know, I guess maybe, I don't know, it's a weird scene. Like, it definitely feels like they're trying to make a bigger statement than they deserve to make about, like, this model culture. Like, it doesn't feel like a very earned, big, like, statement they're trying to make, but I felt like that's what they were trying to do. Maybe they weren't. Then we cut to, Freddy shows up, though, and he's here to help because he's going to put her in a high chair. Because this scene gets a little weird. There's a little bit of weird vibes in it. Because he puts her in a high chair, and then he tells her, bon appetit, B word. Because he's a big cursey boy now. He loves that B word. He says it a lot.
He's a sassy, cursey man.
He loves, yeah. This is that point where
to his mom earlier.
He says, yep. He calls her that. Like, it's just, he's at that point. He is at the point. We are at the point of Freddy where the Scary Terry parody of him in Rick and Morty isn't really even that much of a parody. He's just Freddy at this point. That's where Freddy is at. Like, he's just okay. Got it. Here's where but yeah, he starts
force B-bombs left and right.
Yeah, he starts force feeding her, and he says, "You are what you eat," which fun fact. This movie had a lot of scenes that were severely cut by the MPAA. And he actually was feeding her from, like, her stomach. He was, like, ripping her, like, innards out and feeding her in this scene. So that line makes more sense when you know that scene that's cut. Because if not, you're just kind of like, okay, you are... It felt like a very this movie Freddy quip of just saying words that had to do with food because he was killing her with food. But it actually was a clever quip because he was feeding her dead body, or her body. So I'll retroactively give this quip a, pass of approval because apparently it actually was clever. It wasn't just power drive, fast lane, food words. Like, it was actually him trying. They were trying to do something. It just got cut. So in the end result, it feels kind of just there.
It is like something fleshly that he's feeding her, right?
Yeah, it definitely looks grotesque, but I would not have guessed it was her if I didn't see the cutscene. He's force feeding her, and then as she starts to choke, Freddy calls her a baby and burps her. There's some real weird, like, baby stuff with, like, her being in a high chair and then him calling her a baby and trying to burp her. Like, it's weird. Then we cut to the real world where
the message is that she's a doll. Like the doll that she broke.
You're right. I guess that is what this is supposed to be. Because they did show that doll in the one scene. She is a baby doll.
That's it.
Yeah, you're right.
Because her face, she's a doll.
Yeah.
Is that meaningful?
Not really.
No.
But once again, the smallest margin of credit, it is slightly less just weird when you think about the shoehorned in doll plot for the sake of this kill. And a later kill, because it comes back for some reason. Then we cut to the real world where she's choking, and then we cut back from the real world to her dream, and her family is laughing. It's a real, like, quick cut to her choking, and then cut right back to the dream where you kind of go, like, her family actually laughing at her while she's choking? Like, it's a really trippy little moment there. You find out later that they're not, but it definitely you go like, oh, wow, dang, her family is, like, screwed up. Like, we knew they were, like, bad. Like, her mom was a jerk, but we didn't realize she was laughing at her dying daughter a jerk. But she's not.
Dude, yeah, it feels like kind of Tim Burton-y almost.
I could definitely see that. There's definitely Beetlejuice vibes in this scene. Then we cut to Alice, and... Wait. Yeah, we do cut to Alice, and she's at
opening her fridge.
She's opening her fridge, and it's growing mold all over it in this kind of trippy,
very
like,
weird stop
motion. I would call this a cool stop motion scene. We get another stop motion scene later that's...
That's cool.
This one is cool. Like, it's not... It's like, it's fine, the later one.
It's not done well.
No. But
cool.
this... I liked this one. I liked the growing mold scene. I mean, is it pointless? Is it literally just look at this creepy mold for a second? Yes. But it's well done creepy mold. Because out pops... Greta with her... Which we haven't mentioned. While she's being force-fed, her cheeks are just getting fuller and fuller in this weird, like... Yeah. If you're on the video version, Isaiah tried to show us what it looked like.
Tried?
You're sorry. It was a perfect one-for-one.
Successfully showed us what it looked like.
But Freddy's here, and he pulls her back into the fridge and her party where she dies. And her family does actually react like they just saw their daughter die. I'll give them credit.
Really?
That was apparently part of the dream world. Excuse me.
Disgusting.
That's fair. And now we cut back to Alice and Yvonne, who go to visit Mark at, I thought, his warehouse job, but no, I believe this is the warehouse he lives at in the back of, for some reason.
With his greasy dad.
Yeah, because his name is Mark, whatever the last name of this warehouse company was, but it definitely feels weird. And like when they first go there, I thought it was just like that was his boss. I didn't realize that was his dad, and I thought it was just like, yeah, I think he's in the back somewhere. And it was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, but apparently,
like, is he doing inventory back there?
But apparently, this is his house because it is covered in his drawings.
Paraphernalia.
It's weird. Yeah, and then I wrote here that the acting is atrocious in this scene.
Atrocious. Mark might be the worst offender.
Yeah, and he definitely, whenever he's in a scene, he brings down the people around him as well. Like, they are not good enough actors to still be able to act off of no one. They are rough.
Everyone else's lines also become weird and choppy.
Yeah. We go to Mark's art room, and Mark wishes he was more like his character, the Phantom Prowler.
Phantom Prowler.
But he's not. He's just a loser. That's why he couldn't get credit while she was alive. Yeah. Then Mark...
He spells out for us that if he had any balls, he'd be like the Phantom Prowler, who isn't even real.
Yeah.
What a drastic comparison.
Also, before we go back to the art room, my bad, I did forget to mention that Mark is starting to believe the Freddy stuff, and Yvonne is not, to the point where she left. So Yvonne is no longer in this scene. It is just Mark and Alice. And Mark, they have a little conversation, and Alice says she's going to go make some coffee to keep them awake. But while she's gone, Mark goes and falls himself asleep. And, wait, what's that on his table? That's right, baby. It's back. It's a drawing of the Elm Street house. Woo! Elm Street house! That's why we're here! Yeah. We come back for the Elm Street house! That's why I watch these movies. That house! Yeah. So the Elm Street house there, and what's that? Mark's doing a little, take on me like thing in there. He's not quite. Dude, it gets even more take on me later, but he definitely has a take on me vibe in here. But Alice is seriously not, a huge take on me fan, so she just draws a little stick figure of herself to add herself into the dream.
Well, she can't draw very good.
Yeah, she's not an artist.
That's Mark's thing.
Yeah. And now they're at the house, and they go into the house, and in the house there's this hell hole, which I think
probably Alice's womb.
I think it's like her umbilical cord womb. It's something I think inside of her due to a one later scene where we get more context with it. And actually, I will say it is almost definitely her umbilical cord, because it was trying to drop Mark into it, which meant his soul would have went into the baby, like we find out later.
True.
But she saves him, pulls him up from this, and but what's that? He's got blood on his hands, so he passes out due to the blood and wakes up and leaves her. That's the big payoff to him seeing blood and not liking it, was it made him pass out here. And now to even more, I just did a big sigh on that, but let's do some more big sighs, because now Jacob's here. And he tells Alice he's been having bad dreams, and he's waiting for someone. Then he starts yelling at her about how she doesn't want him, but he wants her, and he likes her. Apparently his friend Freddy told him all this, about how she doesn't like him. But, then this is kind of that moment where she realizes, oh, crap, that's my kid somehow.
Yeah. My kid who is like 7 to 8 years old for some reason.
Yeah, even though he should be...
dreams everybody is inhabiting.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't realize that they're in his dreams quite yet. It comes like, but she does realize that she wakes up and she tells Mark that Freddy is trying to do something to her baby, Jacob, and then Mark is kind of like, oh, you already named him, and she's like, I guess what was the line?
Away.
She has a line like,
yeah, she says, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. She calls him Jacob, and he's like, oh, so his name is Jacob? Yeah, I guess so. It's just
that baby kind of chose his own name.
He did.
His subconscious named him Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah. I predicted that line while we were watching that movie. I guess so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so you named your baby? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I did. Yeah, I guess so. I was like, oh.
That's just an assertive baby, What could I say?
Then we cut to... Mark tells her to, go with Yvonne to the hospital, because... And I thought, she was supposed to just take Yvonne with her to the hospital. I guess she was meeting up Yvonne at the hospital, because she works there, I guess. They don't really establish this well. She's just kind of there. And Yvonne and Alice are about to go in for an ultrasound, and before they go in, Alice asks Yvonne if, babies dream, and, Yvonne is not an expert on babies, so she does not have an answer. And they go in, we start having this ultrasound, and as she's getting prepped for it, she asks the doctor if babies dream, and we find out that they do 70% of the time. Bum, bum, bum!
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's the 70% of this movie that takes place in convoluted dreamscapes.
Yeah. And during her ultrasound, speaking of convoluted and weird, during her dream... during her ultrasound, it starts
she gets
flickering.
Sucked into the ultrasound.
Yeah, the ultrasound machine starts to flicker, and then she gets taken over by the flickering.
She gets digitized.
But then after she gets digitized, she still kind of turns into a spirit as she goes into the ultrasound machine. But also she's not.
There's a little waft of fart gas.
She goes into the ultrasound machine, and there's her really gross looking baby. I mean, that's just babies, but it's a unsettling shot of her baby.
The fetus version.
Yeah, it's a little fetus baby. And then Freddy's there too, and he tells her that he's gonna feed the kid souls. He gives
souls for my son.
No, soul food for my son. Because let's rip off one of the decent jokes from the last movie and just do it again because it worked.
Yeah.
Soul food.
It worked past tense.
Remember soul food? Ha yeah, soul food again. Fast lane. Umbilical cord. Womb.
Getting a little woomy in here.
Well, no, Chris, that's clever.
That's more than one word.
Also, that's clever. He has to just say things that have to do with it. Umbilical cord. Fallopian tube. Ovaries. And you're like, okay.
Cervix.
Yeah. You're like, all right, Freddy. Cool.
All right,
you know what's going on.
About birth.
We see little souls go into the baby.
Little dad and Greta.
Yeah.
Baby just gobbles them up.
Yum yum yum.
I mean, it goes through the umbilical cord just into his stomach, and then he absorbs it.
That is how you feed a baby while they're in the womb.
That is how you do it. But he made a slurping sound, and the baby did not make a slurping sound because that's not how it scientifically works. This baby that might have been possibly conceived somewhat through demon powers, because he's definitely growing at a rapid rate, but even in the womb.
The doctor does say that he's a little bit.
The doctor mentions him being big, so this movie. Then they're about to leave after that, but she's kind of freaking out about that because of what he just told her, and she's yelling at it and telling Yvonne. Yvonne still doesn't believe her. But the doctor here overhears this, and he makes an unknown phone call.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum.
For a few minutes.
Yeah, it's unknown for a scene. Now we go to Alice's room with Yvonne and Alice, and we see this is not important, but I wrote it down because it was a very jarring choice for the set dressing. There's this weird pants planter in her room.
Yeah, the Panther.
Like, there's no I have no real comments on this. It's just like, and it's not
It's
like
just there.
issue. I'm not like, oh, can you believe there's a pants planter? No, it's more so just like, pants planter.
That's what you
All right,
Yeah.
that's you know what? Fine. I just thought I needed to bring it up.
If you were a teenager, you would understand
Oh,
the pants planner.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Well,
Pair of
Yeah.
pants and shoes.
you know who doesn't understand what's going on? Yvonne. 'Cause she still doesn't believe in Freddy Krueger. But then Mark shows up with some evidence, but Yvonne doesn't care, so she just knocks it over and leaves the room. Then Mark and her start to pick it up a little bit, and Alice tells Mark how Freddy's using her baby's dreams. And, you know, this movie is a weird movie, because then it kind of has this tonal change of kind of a serious discussion of Mark being like, hey, you sure you want to keep this baby? I don't feel like a movie that is as absurd and weird as this movie is should at all be trying to tackle if abortions are okay. Like, I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just going to say that this movie has no right to have Mark be the one to suggest this and then die as a comic book character 5-10 minutes from now. Those two things don't deserve to exist in the same movie. That's all I'm going to say, and we're going to move on. But yeah, after... Then, where were we? She does tell him that no, she wants to keep the baby, and then she goes downstairs.
Then we transition to a scene of
We just go. They go straight downstairs. They both go downstairs after that.
and grandparents are there.
Yeah.
Right. Or
And the
not-
Jordans.
Well, yes, kind of.
The Jordan
Yeah.
family are there, and they want to adopt the baby to help Alice out. But she wants to keep the baby because it's her baby. And they think that that's a bad idea because she's crazy because the doctor called them and told him so.
Doctor told you.
Yeah, doctor told on him.
That was the call.
Yep,
He snitched.
yep. But, you know, once again, huge props to Alice's dad. He's like, no, get the hell out of my house. This is my daughter's choice. You're not going to come into my house and try to, like, threaten legal proceedings on my daughter. Get out of here. And you know what? Dad, big redemption arc from horribly abusive, non-loving father from the beginning of the last movie to super supportive dad in this movie. Props to Alice's dad.
Hey, doing wonders for him.
He deserves the opposite of, like, the Kristen's Mom award. The Kristen's Mom is the worst parent ever. Her dad becomes, like, one of the best parents we've seen in a horror movie.
Horror movie? Yeah.
Then we have Mark and Alice, and they're finding out about Amanda Kruger's backstory, and we find out that she killed herself, but there was no
They
body
never found the body.
in the
Whoa.
tomb. So that means
her
wherever
spirit has not been laid to
Yeah.
rest? Question mark.
so wherever her body is, she's still.
we read that in the Christian mythology book.
Yeah,
by the way.
she does pull out this Christian mythology book to tell us about this.
Classic Christian.
How her soul would
mythology.
be in torment.
Yeah. That seminal novel or volume
So
on the Bible.
it's the Christian mythology book.
Yeah.
So they have to go find and release Amanda's soul. Now we cut to Yvonne, who shows up at the pool and is late for diving practice. So she asks if the pool's still open. You expect to go like do some dives or some swimming, but no, she decides to just go dip in the hot tub for a little bit.
Yeah, chilling. The
Submerge and
jacuzzi.
relax.
Yeah, let me just
after having
let me
not
just
slept.
go
And
to
also
sleep.
fall asleep.
Let me just go to sleep under the water. How we all do it, right?
Nothing like drowning myself while I sleep.
But yeah. But before
Our
we
most relaxing method of death.
Before we can find out anything else about that, we cut... No, we don't. Yeah, we do. We cut to Alice, who is starting to look for Amanda in her dreams. I believe she also tells Mark to watch her, which, you know, if we know anything about these movies, never tell a character to
success.
watch you while
Anybody
you
to watch
sleep.
you.
They will not do it. They will fall asleep on their own. That is how
It
it
will
works.
turn into a drawing.
That is how it always works. They turn into a drawing, and then they die.
Sucked
Wait,
into a music
no,
video.
No, wait, no. That's actually not how it normally works. But it is how it works in this one. But first, we have to have this scene where Yvonne, she goes up and she goes on the diving board, but it starts cracking and turning into these claymation claws that they're not bad. They just don't work for this scene. They kind of just feel a little out of place. Then she goes for her dive, though, still, to get away from it, and she kind of... For a second there, I thought we were going to get, an endless falling dream for her, but no.
I thought we were going to get she dives off, and then it turns into, bricks, and then she just...
And, it almost looks
like at the front, and then she dives to the side.
Yeah.
I think, she got tricked into diving onto the concrete floor of the pool.
No.
Nope.
You'd think for a second that maybe she is about to splat, because the pool disappears, and there's this, stone floor, but oh, wait, no, there's a little puddle in it, and she lands right in the puddle with a perfect 10 out of 10 dive.
It's like...
Yeah, and she goes through that.
Into, a boiler?
Yeah, it's like a boiler in a boiler room, I guess. It's a circular room with water in it, in a boiler, in the sanitarium.
Another womb-like kind of space.
Yeah, there's some womb-like vibes to it for sure.
She's floating around and
And then once she gets there though, Alice is forced to roll to the tank with some quip about let's roll with it or something like that, or let's rock and roll. Then once she's there, she says what did she say? I know what you're up to. And he's like, I'm up to Yvonne, and he pulls her up. It wasn't clever. It didn't make this might be my least favorite of anything he says in this movie. As much as I've crapped on fast
power steering
and
another
power steering,
fuel injection,
alternator.
Yeah, that's bad. Don't get me wrong. I hate that. But he doesn't even try to make a joke here. He just grabs her. I got her. Oh, okay. Yeah, you do, Freddie. Good for you, Freddie. Gold star. You do
Yvonne.
have... her name's Yvonne, right? I remembered. Yeah.
Diving board.
He's like, boiler room.
He just, instead of doing quips, he just starts naming things around him.
Lamp.
Game of Ice Pie.
I love Lamp. He is Brick from... Not Brick. What's his name?
It is Brick.
Is it Brick?
It is
from Anchorman.
I couldn't remember his name was Brick.
Anchorman.
It felt wrong.
It's Brick.
But
He's
yeah.
the one with the trident.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does have a trident. He's amazingly played by Steve Carell. But yeah, Steve Carell is not in this movie, so Alice stabs Freddy in the mouth because she's tired of hearing him talk, and that works.
A pool cleaner.
And then she's...
Or a pool
Yeah,
spinner.
but it's a really sharp end to it for the sake of stabbing him. It's practically a spike when she grabs it. You're like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And then she grabs Yvonne and they start to head out of there, and Freddy starts to follow them, but he's scared. But why? Well, don't worry. Alice is going to immediately tell us he's scared of Amanda. Let's go find her. So it's not like Amanda's there.
Yeah, she's nowhere to be seen at all.
But the thought that she might be there makes Freddy go, nah, you can have Yvonne.
He's kind of like...
He's like, I didn't have any clever jokes for Yvonne anyway. You can have her. I was just going to say her name again and then kill her. Yeah, so then we cut to the real world where Yvonne is finally realizing that Alice isn't crazy. And then we cut to Mark, who, he finds this really cool comic book that's all about this movie. And I will say, the art in this comic that he's flipping through is actually pretty dope.
Solid.
He's seeing actual comic book depictions of pretty much every scene we've seen so far in the movie, at least all the big ones. I don't believe there was a scene of Alice with her dad in that charming scene. I think they did forget that in the comic. Very disappointing, but
Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Freddie didn't care about that.
Yeah, that's true. Freddy's like, I liked him when he was a drunk. Because then when he was a drunk, I could just show up in his room and be like, brandy, vodka, and you're like, okay, Freddy, we get it. You see things. Yeah. Then Mark, he's flipping through the comic book, and then he flips to himself looking at the comic book, and then for the second time, definitely even more blatantly, he gets take on Mead into this picture. He is in, but once he's in the world, he's not this whole. They did not have the budget to actually take on me this whole scene because he is now just himself in this comic
grayscale.
Grayscale world that's very inspired by I feel inspired by like a Dick Tracy comic. It's a cool scene, I guess.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Kind of. Well,
I started to say I appreciate that, like, I mean, they didn't have the digital method to like just make him in color, so they painted everything
Mhm.
grayscale, and
Almost.
then like had Freddy. Yeah, right.
We'll get to that.
And but
Painted
except that they didn't,
almost everything.
We'll get to that,
because
Chris.
they forgot a big swath of like a piece of wood that they show 2-3 times jiggling around like
I
in the
didn't
center of the
notice
screen.
this one.
on
I
those
noticed
yellow glory.
there is another point, I have it in my notes because there's another point where there is a much more understandable piece that they missed. That just was, my brain went, "Hey, that's wrong, you stupid." But let's.
What are you thinking of?
I'll bring it up when we get to it. Where were we? So Mark, he's here, and he's in the comic world now, and there's a black and white Freddy who's kind of chasing him around this little world, and then he grabs a skateboard because
He skates around, and he doesn't make any puns about
he doesn't.
shredding on a skateboard or being tubular despite being surrounded by tubes and poles.
He doesn't go.
Prince, why didn't you write this movie?
He doesn't
dude?
go wheel bearings.
This is like, dude, yeah.
And I was so pissed.
It just writes itself.
yeah.
Shredding? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Deck.
Yeah.
Wheels. Kickflip.
Wooden platforms. Bitch.
Yeah. So he's doing that, and he chases through him. And while he's doing this, he has his claws out, and he takes down like the whole set. And as the set falls, though, in front of him, you see all this gray stuff, and this one little like piece of a 2x4 that was holding together something. It has a couple nails in it. Is just not painted. Everything around it. Okay, like everything around it is, but there's this one piece where you're like, that's not painted. You forgot
And
to
they
paint
show
it
it more than once, and
I
it's
didn't
not like
notice
a little
for
bit
that
of it.
one.
It's a whole dude.
Yeah, I noticed it in that one scene, and I was like, hey, they didn't paint that. Everything else is painted. Okay.
That was, yeah.
But after that, let's be honest, just honest mistake. We go to the movie where the blood starts dripping on Mark. Some blood, the blood's dripping on him before he looks up, and Freddy's surrounded by like porcelain dolls. One of which is a porcelain doll of Greta, who he pushes down, and it falls in front of Mark. But then as it hits, it turns into an actual porcelain doll, like not full-sized Greta human. But it does have like human blood in it. And that, that is obviously the origin story. We all know that from the famous Phantom Prowler comic. Oh, wait, that's not a real thing. But yeah, he turns into the Phantom Prowler now, because I guess he's also a Dream Warrior. Because he is bad. He is beautiful and bad. He insults. Yeah, he insults Freddy with his little gun, and he starts shooting Freddy, and he takes down Freddy. That's right. And there's some really epic music playing as he does this, and Freddy's dead. Just kidding. No, he's not. Of course he's not. Freddy's back.
Now he's Super Freddy. Actually,
he's a jacked supervillain who's faster than a bastard maniac, more powerful than a loco madman. It's Super Freddy.
Yeah, those are the lines they wrote.
Then Super Freddy cuts him, and we get a real. Honestly, I mean, it's silly and weird, but I actually think it's well done. We have this like animated version of him that's all like floppy and like looks like a piece of paper at first, and it like the color slowly drains out of him, and then he gets actually like cut up and actually is paper at that point. And it's
shredded.
Like, here's the thing, this scene is stupid as all hell, but I do kind of love it. Like, it is fun. It is
for being a
stupid.
Comic book based character. Yeah. The death is pretty cool.
Which I believe this was written into the story because the director just really liked comic books. So he wanted to do a comic book death.
Fair.
Yep. Now we cut to Alice and Yvonne, who they find out that Mark is dead, and they gotta figure out their plan to take out Freddy, and how it's gonna be through getting Amanda Kruger. So Yvonne is sent off to find Amanda Kruger, while Alice is gonna go take a nap to kill Freddy.
Front Freddy.
Yeah. So Yvonne shows up at the bell tower of the asylum, which once again looks completely different. It is not at all the bell tower or any of the stuff from the third movie, which was where this stupid plot line comes from. But we can't even keep consistent to the fact that was supposed to be the same building as that one. Like, it'd be even one thing if maybe, like, the dream version of this looked like that gothic thing, and maybe it's a representation of what it used to look before it got rebuilt. No, the modern version that Yvonne goes to is the one that's gothic and does not add up with the one from the third movie.
Yeah. You understand.
And as she's... we also have Yvonne, once Yvonne's inside, she picks up some rebarb. It never comes into play, but they have this shot where they show her picking up rebarb. You kind of expect her to get into a fight or something. I guess she might use that later to take out a wall. I think she might.
Well, she, pokes some
She
bricks
does.
through.
I guess it was but, she could have, you didn't need to show this shot of her picking up rebarb. It felt like it was going to be more important than it was.
Yeah. Like when she hefts it.
Yeah. Then we cut to Alice's dream. And, after she picks up the rebarb, Alice, we cut to Alice's dream and she yells at Freddy in her dream. Then we kind of cut back and forth a couple times here between Alice and Freddy and Yvonne looking for Amanda's body. Then Alice...
And while Freddy's chasing Alice, he does some really cool and completely pointless teleporting. Where he, flashes forward.
Jump cut teleporting. Where
a literal, foot ahead of where he was before.
It's a foot at a time to make him.
Why?
Because he's powerful, Chris.
Dream powers.
Yeah. Then we cut to. Sorry, not we cut to. We stick with this. After she eventually gets, once he gets closer to her, Alice, rams the stroller from earlier into him, but it also has spikes on it now. Apparently, I don't know if those were in the original shot, but they have their spikes now. So,
heavy metal stroller.
Yeah, it's this metal stroller with spikes, and she stabs him, and she runs him into this room, dropping him in, and what? Oh, what's that? It's his dad's, I guess. And they swarm him, and they rip him apart, limb by limb. But then they
impregnate him.
No, they don't do that.
They
just rip his body apart. Because they also just, kill him. Because they're maniacs. Because everyone who has any sort of mental disorder is a horrible person who will attack a woman or kill someone. Oh, wait, no, that's a horrible message to give. But hey, let's just do that for this movie.
That's the takeaway.
It really, sadly,
the takeaway of this fable.
It's really sad that's so. It happens so much in horror. That's one of, horror's, biggest issues is, there's a lot. There are a lot of issues in horror in general, but that is one of the, I think, a really big problem in horror is this need to depict a mentally disabled person as dangerous. It's irresponsible, especially considering the statistics are the opposite. A mentally disabled person is more likely to be the victim of violence than the average person. It's sad. It happens in this. We'll address it when we get to the Halloween franchise. When we get to it, it's a theme that pops up a lot in that franchise as well. And it's sad. It shouldn't be, but it is. Crazy people are bad, apparently. If you have any sort of mental disorder, you're crazy and you're evil. But after they attack him, they throw his arm, and his arm's spiders now.
Yeah.
Because it can be. Because why not?
Arm.
Because
this
later when it is not. It's an arm again.
His arm is spiders. They crawl on her. It freaks her out, and then they're not there, and he's in another room now. Because I guess that spider trick was just to mess with her. Because it's not like he had to reform from the spiders back into himself. It's not like he used the spiders to get out of the situation. He just now isn't in the situation, and he's with Jacob. Where was it? Oh, up here. What? Am I on the wrong page? Oh, no. Here we are. Freddy is playing with Jacob, and they're holding hands. He's playing silly, there's no quips in the scene, but there's just a lot of, weird, silly, oh, who's my boy kind of dialogue.
Oh, coochie coochie coo.
Yeah. He's baby talking to him.
Yeah.
He is a fetus still.
But, yeah. But then...
Not in his dreams.
Yeah, not in his dreams.
wildest dreams.
But then Alice yells at him that, hey, he's not safe. Stranger danger. So Jacob, he runs away. And I will say, in a really cool, like, MC Escher dream stairs sequence, I really like this. Like,
It's done well.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's kind of crazy
an
that
MC Escher chase scene.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that it took till the 5th movie to elicit, the MC Escher stairs painting, which is such a dreamlike quality. Like, I feel like that should have been done in one of the better movies, but instead we wasted that on this movie. So yeah, he chases him for a little bit in there, kind of swipes at him from like upside down. There's some cool shots in it, but then Dan Jordan's back. But just kidding, he's not really Dan Jordan. It's Freddy pretending to be Dan Jordan, and it doesn't work. So Freddy Dan says, "Kids, always a disappointment." Ba-ba-ba. Then Alice and Jacob are...
Cheers.
Yeah, now Alice and Jacob are standing on the stained glass from the cathedral earlier is now on the ground here.
Yeah.
And
Kingdom Hearts moment.
we have this little scene where Jacob tells her what Freddy's, he's not here right now. He's hiding. Where's he hiding? In Alice, obviously. And then we get this really weird Alice Freddy hybrid for like a shot before he starts.
He's like yanking him out,
pulling. Yeah. He starts getting pulled out of her, and it's a weird kind of trippy scene where like she's fighting to get him out. There is,
also well done.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. I'd say relatively well done. Like I don't love it, but I definitely. It's not bad. Cool.
Yeah, a few cool shots where like Freddy's legs are still like through Alice.
So fun fact: the way they did that was they had a paraplegic guy with no legs, who she was like holding, and he was on wires, and like the legs are fake to make that scene happen.
That's wild.
Right.
Yeah. But then while this is all happening, we cut to Yvonne, who finds this nun. She sees a nun. She walks over, and it's a skeleton. Maybe trying to elicit like a Psycho, like an homage to Psycho with like the Norman Bates' mom. But if it was badly done. It just felt weird. Like she's just a skeleton, but then she's not even there. Yeah. Like if she was just a ghost, she could have just been a ghost and then disappeared. But she's a skeleton, which implies like that's where her body actually was. But now it's not there. Whatever. Let's move on like they did, because this scene is literally there and gone. It's just, remember we told you she had to find her, so they found her. Okay, we're good. Let's move on now.
Yeah, we did it.
We added that point of the plot just to have Yvonne do something. Because now we're back in the dream world, and Amanda Kruger's here, and she tells Jacob Freddy won't triumph if he helps Alice. So, in what may be in a movie that is already one of my least favorite movies I've ever watched, it gets even worse, in my opinion, because Jacob turns into this weird little Freddy, and he starts talking to him.
He does a really cool voice.
Yeah, he tries to do his own little Freddy voice.
He sounds like an evil Bobby Hill.
It is a rough scene. And little Freddy tells Big Freddy that he wants to learn from him, that he can't learn anything more from his mom. She's not fun, I think.
Learn from you, Dad.
Yeah. But then, before Freddy drops Alice, he gives her this weird sloppy kiss. Like it's prolonged and just weird, and we just hear kissing noises, and you're like, what?
Really cool. Oh, I wouldn't call him kissing so much as slurping sound effects.
Sucking on her face noises.
Kind of deal.
But then we have Amanda Kruger, right as that happens, after he walks towards him, say like, hey, now's the time. So Jacob says, school's out, Kruger, and he shoots souls or his tongue or baby vomit. He shoots something at Freddy. He gets absorbed by Freddy. He freaks out, smokes a little bit, and then like soul tentacles come out of him that look all like the faces of the deaths from earlier
of all the victims.
Yeah, and they eventually,
one of them's a motorcycle, the other's a doll, and so forth.
And then Phantom Prowler.
And then of course, who would have? Why not? let's bring him back. What do those things do? They pull out baby Freddy from the beginning. Woo, baby Freddy's back. Woo!
Suck him right out of the sweater, baby.
Yeah, and he lands into Amanda's arms, and she reabsorbs him into her womb.
Yep.
And
Just
while
like I
this is
said earlier,
happening, we
on
also
birth.
get a shot of Jacob, who is now a baby again. Well, I guess a baby
Also
for the
get
first
absorbed
time,
back
who
into the
gets
womb of Alice.
absorbed into his mom, into Alice, because why not? Freddy can absorb, so why can't they're absorbing. But
Just like Jason crawling back into the womb of...
which we didn't even actually talk about in that episode. We missed that somehow.
Nope, we sure did. Very sad about it.
But Freddy's not done, though, because he tries to pull himself from Amanda. He stabs out his hand and is trying to get out, but she doesn't let him. She just kind of walks backwards, and they fail. He fails as they close this door, and they kind of walk into this, like, heavenly light-esque light.
In the asylum hallway. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Alice, Yvonne, and her dad are having a little hanging out with little baby Jacob, and it's a little cute little scene to close it out. Happy. Oh, we're going to end happy. Maybe not, though, because... Oh, past the swings are the little kids singing the song again. Ooh. And then we go to the end credits with this rap song.
Yeah, really aggressive rap song for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, this movie's bad. I'm trying to think of what's good, because I don't want to just crap on this movie completely in my, closing thoughts, because I try not to completely crap on movies during these closing thoughts part. But it was rough. I will say, I think there are parts of this movie that if I was watching it under a different context, if I wasn't watching this to review it and having to take in-depth notes of it and had to take this hour and a half somewhat torturous movie at times, it took me and Chris 2.5 hours to watch it today because of how many times I had to pause to take the notes because of how weird this movie is and how much crap happened in one scene at a time. Like, maybe this movie would have been a slightly better experience and I wouldn't have hated it. Like, there are some of the kills are kind of fun. Like, I think they were fun for what they were, but it's just, I think this movie we're on that downward track. I think the last movie started it. Maybe even some people, I don't agree, because I think 3 was actually I think it's perfect. 3 was the exact moment where we crested over the hill of like a roller coaster. It was that perfect peak moment. It was great. It still had some, I guess it wasn't perfect because I didn't like the Amanda Kruger stuff, but it was as close to perfect as I've had for this franchise because I'm not the biggest fan of it. But we had this, I thought it was great. I think Freddy was perfect in that movie, and then we just slowly got worse. Last movie was decent. There was definitely a lot of fun moments in a crappy movie. This movie was a few kind of fun moments in a really crappy movie, and from all accounts I've ever heard, it's only just the beginning, and that's my thoughts. Is this movie sucks. I liked the kills. The kills sequences, they're fun dream sequences like always. They haven't had a bad, really, in the franchise. They haven't really had a lot of bad dream sequences. The dream sequences are always relatively fun, except for like the first movie because they weren't supposed to be fun then. But I don't have a lot to praise this movie for. I really don't. The effects, it's the special effects, because these movies are some great special effects showcases, and that's about it. That's my thoughts. Your turn, Chris.
Yeah. This movie definitely felt like they said we have to capitalize off the success of the last film. We gotta make another movie. And so they got in the writing room, and then like 2 or 3 people came up with some good ideas for kills. And they're like, all right, how do we write a script around all that?
So, fun fact about this movie, actually, I didn't think you brought up here. This movie had one of the most scripts, like not most, but like there's been a lot of movies get rewritten. This movie kept getting rewritten to the point where I don't remember who it was, but someone maybe the Academy had to step in and say to decide who would actually be credited for writing it because of how many people were involved in this writing process. And also, they didn't even have a finalized script by February, and the movie came out in October. of a year. Like, this movie was rushed. So that's one of the probably big reasons why this movie is pretty bad. And it doesn't, like, justify it, but it's an explanation for why it was so bad.
No, that does make a lot of sense. And, you feel it the entire time you're watching the movie, because all the dialogue is painfully bad. Even Freddy, like, at his best, still is not very funny. And at his worst, doesn't make any
Fast
sense.
lane!
Fuel injection.
Brake fluid.
Antifreeze!
Wiper fluid. Yeah, and all of the parts outside of the kills are pretty painful to watch, aside from, the scene with Alice's dad, which is really the only part of this movie that makes any of this, like, any logical sense writing-wise as to why you would include it at all. And it's a miracle that they even managed to pull that out. This movie is a train wreck.
Dude, I have to agree with that assessment. Y'all know I don't like to really poop on these movies, but I try to see them in the best light. But yeah, you summed it up. The effects, as always, are good, but the only part of storytelling quality in this movie was the dad and the scenes with him and his relationship with his daughter. Aside from that, it felt like the script was written by a method of randomly generating a bunch of random teenage phrases and shuffling them and then just kind of laying them out in the order that fate gives you. Like, this is like throwing a dart at a globe.
Card reading of the generated phrases.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah.
They're disconnected. They're worsened by bad acting that disconnects the actors, who frequently don't even make eye contact when they're making their lines. It's just bad. And it's so hard to get over bad acting, bad dialogue. Like, that's how a movie works. It's through actors speaking to each other in ways that make sense. And this movie didn't have that. Instead, it poured a lot of budget into cool effects and some cool practical, gory-looking stuff like that. And really, if you ask just the average person, like, how do you distinguish a bad and a good horror movie? Everybody will tell you, like, oh, if it's just like mindless efforts at, scary gore, that's not a good movie. And I really hate to say it, I'm reluctant to say it, but that's what this movie was. And yeah, I'm at the end of my rope here. I mean,
That's fair.
Yeah.
I appreciate, as always, something that they've done, and I think they've done it subtly in every movie, including this one, is try and tackle teenage problems.
That's fair.
And maybe that's just what I'm seeing in the ink blot, but I see, like, each movie addressing a different thing. And this one was like, unexpected pregnancy. And so these are deep topics to wrestle with, and I appreciate that they're taking them on. They didn't totally cheapen it in this one like they did in the last one, so I think that's good. They handled this one better. But you just can't get over crappy acting, crappy writing, and an overinvestment in the visual stuff, which is not the basis of a movie, so.
Yeah.
So get ready for next week when it all gets worse.
Yeah, all accounts, the next one is the worst in the whole franchise. So next week we will be watching Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare.
We thought that about Friday the 13th as well, and the last one ended up being...
That is true. I had heard horrible things
masterpiece.
about Jason X, and I loved Jason X.
Jason X was great.
So
Maybe it'll be such terrible schlock that we end up loving it.
I doubt it, but it
The
might
internet
be.
hive mind is often wrong. So
Quite
I'm
possible.
optimistic.
But they were right on this one, because they all hate this one too. And yeah.
And they should.
Yeah. Real quick before we head out, I do want to say, hey, if you like our stuff and you want to help support this channel, we do have a Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/horrorboys. We have a lot of different tiers with a lot of different possible rewards on those tiers. Hey, if you want to support us, help us be able to do even bigger and better things as we go forward, hey, help us out. If not, hey, it's fine. I understand. Just keep watching. Just please keep watching. Tell your friends. That's more important, actually. But yeah, we'll be back next week with Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Which, real quick, just want to point out, once again, not the final movie in the franchise. Because when in doubt, if a movie says final, probably isn't.
It's penultimate at best.
Yeah, it really is. I've been Austin, been joined by Chris and Isaiah. Bye!
Bye-bye.
Bye.